So the way I developed the dances for Oklahoma was a little roundabout. I got inspired by a TV show. Ironically, it was Ugly Delicious on Netflix. And I'm gonna hate myself for saying this, but it was the fried chicken episode. And I realized with this fried chicken episode in the town that I was choreographing for, what would it be like if African Americans can just eat fried chicken freely of the stigmas? Not only that, it just made me think about joy and happiness and liberation and just authentically being yourself. So that's one part of it. Another part was, I thought about my favorite era, which is the 1920s, Harlem Renaissance, right after the Depression. And then I just did a rewind, like 15 years later, around that time when Oklahoma took place, what would the movement look like? So what I did was take my favorite dance steps from the 1920s and strip them back to think of how people danced probably like 15 years prior. So you put those two things together, woven with African American cultural practices and traditions, and that's how I got the choreography for Oklahoma. So my process was completely different for Indecent. First of all, I was jumping into somebody else's culture, which is also fun. It's part of being an American, but also trying not to appropriate. So what I did was I asked a lot of my friends and family, and I talked to people around me. I did the research, I went to the libraries, and trying to think of certain things I can cherry pick to basically show how people lived back in that time period. And it was great because it was a totally different experience. And with Indecent, it became way more about the storytelling and transitional elements as opposed to breaking out into song immediately. So when it came to Indecent, basically what happened was the Jewish culture, African American culture, there's a lot of parallels in history, and a lot of times we know trauma, but we also know triumph. I started performing probably over 20 years ago. I originally went to dance school at age 9, and 3 years later I auditioned for my first show, Black and Blue, and it was a European tour. And at age 12, it was an eye-opening experience. First of all, growing up and maturing in the dance and growing up in Europe was something that I could never either write about or talk about explicitly because it was just a transformative time. Not only that, being 12, the next age was like 18 and it went up to 74. So the knowledge that I got from the cast members, again, was something that I'll hold very dear and near to my heart. I did a workshop called Funk University where they got us in the style of the show. Basically, that was a lot of dramaturgy, that was a lot of training, tap training, improvography, and then I auditioned for Bringing the Noise, Bringing the Funk for Savion Glover and George C. Wolfe. And it was very interesting because I was only 15 at that time. They were like, since you're so young, you're gonna be an understudy or a swing. That's all we can promise you. After the training process for the show and really getting into all the characters, they rewarded me with a principal role. So that's how I did Bringing the Noise, Bringing the Funk. My friends like to call me the Diva Whisperer, and I will take that moniker any day. I've worked with the likes of Mariah Carey, I worked with Janet Jackson, I've worked with Jennifer Holliday, I've worked with Meryl Streep, worked with some of the best and most loving divas of our generation. And what I like to do is, and tell people this, just be honest. Be respectfully and politely honest, because at the end of the day, when you're around so many yes people, you just want somebody to go, okay, that was good, but try it this way, or like maybe approach it this way, or maybe stick your leg out that way, or maybe turn your chin that way. And I think honesty has helped me throughout all of that. So I wouldn't say I have any crazy stories, but I love to work with divas. It is literally my favorite thing on earth.